Hi everyone and welcome back to Gypsy Lou True Crime 2. So today we're going to be looking at the up and coming court case featuring Trezell and Jacqueline West. The court case is today at 8:30 a.m. in Kern County, California. This will be the second time that the court has convened in almost a week. Today the court is going to discuss the prosecution's request for a gag order and to discuss whether or not to seal the probable cause affidavit. I will get round to speaking about what's going to happen today, but first I'm going to discuss what a grand jury is, seeing as there's been lots of questions regarding this. Also, if you have time, please check out my previous videos regarding the attorneys and who exactly they are, representing Trezell and Jacqueline. In that video, I deep dived into exactly who the attorneys were, so it is worth a watch. Defence attorney Alexia Torres Stallings and Tim Hennessy have decided to speak out yesterday in the form of a televised press conference. It's interesting that the defence attorneys chose to do their press conference yesterday as the gag order hearings today. So it seems to me that the defence attorneys have wanted to get their say before this gag order comes into place. Stallings and Hennessy used the press conference to clearly state that a grand jury indictment does not mean that the defendants have been found guilty of anything in the eyes of the law. So what is a grand jury? Let's find out. After a crime has been committed and a criminal felony offence, such as a murder, is suspected, a prosecutor must bring felony charges in one of two ways. The first and most common form to bring charges against somebody is usually a preliminary hearing. A preliminary hearing is set before a judge or a magistrate, and the defendant is present at this and is represented by a criminal defence lawyer. If the judge determines that there's enough evidence to show guilt, it would then be turned over to a trial jury. The second and much less common option is to hold a grand jury proceeding at which the defendant is not present. If the jury decides that there is a probable cause to try the defendant for the crime, then he or she will be charged through a document called an indictment. A grand jury is made up of a jury of your peers, and criminal grand jurors are selected at random from a pool of eligible citizens. Grand juries are made up of about 16 to 23 members. In this case, most of the jurors will come from the county in which the trial is being held in, which is Kern County, California. Secrecy is key. Reporters can't report on the grand jury indictment until an indictment has been reached and sent over and the jury has found probable cause to indict. Even after the grand jury has handed the case over to the courts, the media have a right to ask for access to the information coming from the grand jury indictment, but can be refused access for as long as there is reason, example, protecting witnesses and children. This redaction of information has often been seen as a violation of the free media's constitutional rights. The jurors who are picked for the grand jury are also supposed to remain top secret, and they are not to be made public. An oath is administered to grand jurors when they first become part of the jury. The oath every grand juror must take is on the screen now. It would be very serious for a juror to break the law and to discuss anything that relates to the case and anything that breaks that oath. And they could end up in some serious trouble if they go against this. The grand juries could be also kept secret to keep the defendant from finding out that there is charges impending. This could be because a defendant could be likely to run. The grand jury process is controversial. Unlike preliminary hearings, grand juries are held before the defendant appears for arraignment. The interesting thing about grand juries is that the defendant is not present at it, and it is probably not even aware that it is in progress. Only the prosecution is heard, and basically anything that adds value and strength to the case for the prosecution is heard. There is no defence. Unlike a preliminary hearing, There is zero opportunity to cross-examine witnesses in the case, and it's basically a one-sided argument. Well, that's what Trezell and Jacqueline West's lawyers would want us to think if their press conference is anything to go by yesterday. The defence counsel stated to the press conference that the grand jury do not get to hear from the defence and do not get to decide guilt. This is reserved for a trial jury. Burdens and standards of proof are completely different from a trial jury. The grand jury only have to show a burden of proof for a grand jury indictment to be reached. Only then will the jury trial get to hear from the defence and decide if there is enough evidence to find Trezell and Jacqueline guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. What we are hoping that Trezell and Jacqueline will be found guilty of in their upcoming trial, which should start in roughly May. There is a tentative trial date set for May 23rd, but that is subject to change. Finally, in discussing a grand jury trial, I'd like to look at why would the prosecution take this route in the first place? Why wouldn't they just go for a preliminary hearing? Let's take a look at what the DA said at the press conference.
So I'm so sorry, one more question. Can you talk a little bit about why you guys decided to go down the grand jury route and attain that rather than the average procedure?
We try, I've done over 20 grand jury indictments myself throughout my career. It is something that we commonly do on homicide cases, which involve calling live witnesses, and also sometimes we do it because there has to be a little bit of starting and stopping regarding scheduling. A preliminary hearing is continuous. You don't have start and stops, and at a grand jury hearing you can do 2 days of testimony 1 week, so there are a variety of reasons that we considered in this case, and a lot of, if you look back on some of our high-profile homicide cases, most of them did go to grand jury. Yes.
What is a gag order and what does this mean for the public? Judges issue gag orders to ensure a fair trial, to facilitate efficient administration of justice. It stops witnesses talking and leaking information to the press and to members of the public before the trial gets a chance to go ahead. This ensures that all information is kept secret and has more impact when it's presented to a jury trial. Gag orders on trial participants are often used to ensure fair trials. All lawyers, law enforcement officials and court personnel involved in the case is placed under a gagging order to avoid making statements outside of the courtroom that could infiltrate the jury pool. Most gag orders will go unchallenged, and in our case the defence attorneys have already said they will not fight this, and it may mean it's fairer for them too. In short, many journalists see gag orders as a threat to the First Amendment guarantee of free press, while judges see them as inherently necessary to maintain the integrity of the judicial process. The prosecution has been accused of requesting a gag order before defence could talk. In the case of Jacqueline and Trezell West, the prosecution asked for this gagging order after they had made their case clear at the press conference. The defence attorneys were making it clear that that's why they were speaking yesterday in the press conference, as it could be their last opportunity to speak before the case goes to trial, since the gagging order is set to be put in place today. So today, if the gag order is successful, this would mean that the sealing of the probable cause affidavit is likely, meaning zero details about the case will be released until the trial begins and we find out as it happens. It wouldn't be a blanket gagging order, that's something completely different. The pending trial date is May 23rd, but that is subject to change. Oh, and if you enjoyed the video and you haven't subscribed yet, I would be so thankful if you would show your support and like, subscribe and comment. Also, if you have any thoughts, leave them below and I'll be sure to get back to you. So this has been Gypsy Lou, True Crime 2. Thank you.